You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. This week, there was kind of a little bit of melt, if you want to say. The Arch Manning news, I think everyone expected that. But then when Derek Williams follows, then people look around, they're like, well, LSU only has one prospect in the top 150. How would you say that this staff is doing with this class today, right now?
I think that you can slice that a lot of ways. Okay, so let's play this. Back-to-back 500 seasons, right?
Yeah. That's
not going to get you. If you just had that alone and you were doing this in recruiting, you would say, probably press the panic button a bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we've got to make a change somehow. Well, there's been a change made. Now you've also got not just a new head coach, but every coach on staff minus Brad Davis is new. Mm-hmm. You've got new people in recruiting. You've got, a new recruiting coordinator. You've got an entire new strength staff. Everything top to bottom is getting shuffled. So if you put that in, you're coming off back-to-back 500 seasons, you can expect you're probably not going to be recruiting as well as the schools that have been red hot. Ohio State's, Alabama's, whomever, Georgia, whomever it might be. That's understandable. I think it's okay to say right now, man, the top 10 in Louisiana, if I'm looking at that, it doesn't look great. And is that because you're coming off back-to-back tough seasons? You've had to replace everyone. These coaches are getting to know guys. Other coaching staffs have gotten closer to some of these Louisiana guys. And certainly you can go through and play Arch Manning was never coming to LSU. It doesn't matter if
that's he was never coming here.
No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And they never played like he was. It was not like LSU was a finalist. Eli Holstein was not going to come here.
Right.
That's understood.
Which is weird. Well, keep going.
Okay.
I'll come back.
But not going to come here. He goes to Bama, and he's committed as their quarterback. There's a feeling that Jaden Ausberry leaves and goes to Notre Dame. I think that's the team that's been hyped up for him. He's a top 5 guy in the state. I always argue that U-High kids are some of the toughest to get because they've been going, to school at LSU on campus their entire life. So by the time you get to your senior year of high school going to college, some of these kids want to do something different. Tackett Curtis at Manny, no, they never showed much LSU interest. It was always thought he was going to go to Ohio State or somewhere else. So you can kind of play that game, but the reality would be Shelton Sampson at Catholic. There's guys out there, Lance Hurd at Neville, that aren't committed, that you feel like, okay, you got to go out and get them. I mean, you've just lost Derek Williams to Texas. That's before last year. I can tell you the last time an Acadiana guy who was really good and highly rated went anywhere but LSU. I mean, Sage Ryan took it down to the end and picked LSU. And the Westgate tight end, Danny Lewis. The guy was dancing with Brian Kelly and ultimately goes to Bama. That was kind of the first New Iberia Lafayette kid I can remember of note that left the state. Now you've got Derek Williams doing it. So you can there's some worry that, oh man, you've got to be able to lock down the home state. But then you say, hey, look, these guys are just getting here. LSU needs to get back to winning. You do that, it can fix a lot of other things. I guess I come around to this, Matt. And I wholeheartedly agree. The last 3 head coaches, all very different head coaches, all won national championships here. So if you bring in a Brian Kelly, whose win percentage is second to only Saban, or right there with Saban, who's done it over a long period of time at a place like Notre Dame where you've got academic hurdles and you're not in a conference and all these things that, you have to get by. A lot of the reasons he said ultimately he was looking for a change, to get down into the SEC, a school like LSU. You combine a coach like that with the resources here, all of that, match made in heaven. That kind of guy can win a national championship. But the reality was Nick and Les, and it's way too early to know, but Nick and Les and O, yeah, they all won, but they also, way more often than not, the top 10 in Louisiana all came to LSU. I mean, name me, I said this the other day to Hunt, name me an LSU receiver that you would think was good that's not from Louisiana. Terrence Tolliver, Brandon LaFell, like how far back do I have to go for you to say, oh yeah, there's a guy or two. So even the years of DJ Chark and Russell Gage.
Where was Chark from?
Alexandria.
Alexandria. Okay.
So
wow.
You've got talent here. Eval it, get them. The worry would be is if on signing day, this is how it looks, and you've only got 1 or 2 top 10 guys in the state, and that if it continued to look that way, which I think it's way too early to know. We're still 6 months from signing day. So I'm not pressing any panic buttons, but I can completely understand why LSU fans would look at a top 10 and say, man, this doesn't look like what I'm used to seeing. No. There's a whole lot of Bama and Texas and A&M, whoever it might be, kind of in the mix for these guys.
So what you just stated is exactly the point that I made. Like, I think to be concerned is fair, but it's way too early to freak out over
100%.
anything right now. So why usually when you come out of camp season, you do get a nice windfall of commits. That's fair to say, right? Typically, like this is, I do around the SEC, and it's like every day. It's, well, this kid camped and we committed to Kentucky or whatever. Why do you suspect LSU hasn't had a more profitable, I'd use that with no pun intended at all, camp season?
I don't think that's over yet. I think the next week for them is going to be really big. Tomorrow, Jackson Howard, who is a top 100 player, athlete, can play tight end, D end. They like him on the D line. He's announcing his commitment. LSU's out front there. He's a kid from Minnesota, so a top 100 guy. So that could be a domino that drops for him. He's coming off an official visit here recently to LSU, and then on July 4th, there's a bunch of D linemen. Deshaun Womack's a top. Let me see. I think I had a tab pulled up. Top 100 players. Another top 10 edge rusher. Darren Reed out of Georgia is going to announce. That's another top 5 D lineman. Ashton Stamps out of Rummel, who had a big camp and got offered, is going to announce. Jeremiah Stone out in Vegas is going to announce.
And those are all guys LSU.
Jeremiah Hughes. They're all current 23 guys who, between D-line and DB, 2 of them are DBs, a few D-linemen. All those guys have announcements coming up, and LSU is considered to be, whether it's the crystal ball or the recruiting machine or whatever you're looking at,
right.
They're kind of pegged as in it or the front runners. So
the
wave of good news could come, and that's expected because it's so much different than it used to be. And when I say that, I mean June used to just be camp season, and guys went to camp, you got offered, you committed, whatever happened. Now official visits are happening like in the month of from April through June, or excuse me, May through June. I think LSU was at like 29 official visits. So you're bringing in 4 or 5 guys a week, whether it's midweek or on the weekend, and then those guys visit other schools. So by the end of the month, July is a dead period. It's kind of like, okay, now I'm back home with my family. We're swapping notes on all 4 or 5 of our stops, and now we're ready to commit. So I would consider us still to be in the window of camp season, official visit season, and kind of the dominoes that can fall from there.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.